wife. My husband called me Quacker, and I called him Turkey, like most of you know. And I want you to know that this is a very joyful day for me, because my husband graduated to heaven. And as I was spending time in the presence of God this morning, it's like all of heaven is rejoicing because of welcoming Les into heaven. And I feel such joy and such hope. And since he passed, yes, there have been times of tears and times of grieving. But the verse in the Bible that stands out to me is, we grieve, but not as those who are in the world. Because I have hope. And when this happened, I began feeling so connected to eternity and so connected to heaven and having a greater revelation of eternity. And it has not left me. And when you have that, when you have a connection to eternity and your future, then you can fully live in the now. You don't have to be so quiet. You can say, I agree. Okay. Because I want you, I know I've been to memorial services before. We're calling this a graduation celebration. I've been to services before, and when I sat out there, so many times you feel nervous, you feel scared, you don't know how, you don't know if emotion is going to well up. I want to tell you that it is all okay. Amen. However God does you is okay, because he's God. Yeah. And if you cry, that's good. And if you rejoice, that's good. Because we know where our turkey is. Yes. And here's the thing, and this is part of my connection to eternity and connection to heaven that I feel so strong, is that I know that I will see him again. Yeah. I know that. There's not a doubt in my mind. And it's like all my brothers and sisters in the Lord, I know that I will see you again. And when I don't like to talk of my husband in past tense, like say he passed or he died, because he's not dead. His body is gone, but he's still very much alive, and he's living in eternity. And I will see him again. And so many times he taught on the Jewish wedding of antiquity. Maybe some of you heard it. And he talked about how Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. Mm-hmm. And the Lord prepared a place for Les. He's preparing a place for me and for each one of you. He's preparing a place for you, and that is real. And when Les used to teach on that, he'd say, Jesus went, just like in the Jewish wedding of antiquity, he went to prepare a place. The bridegroom went to prepare a place for his bride. Have you heard him teach this, Bruce? Do you remember? Okay, a lot of you guys have. And the bridegroom's friends they would come and they would say, when are you going to go get your bride? When is the house going to be done that you're building for your bride? Now, and he would build it attached to his family's house. It was called a shtetl. Am I right, Bruce? And Bruce is my Hebrew scholar in residence. Now, let me forget where I am in the story. But this is Bruce Porter, and he will be quacking after me. He was our pastor in Colorado. And then I have a lot of friends, a lot of family. Les's son, whom we call Son of Turkey, is here. Just give a wave, Reed. I know, okay, he's acting shy, but really he's as bold as a lion. I have my sister, I have my niece, I have her children, I have my brother-in-law, Bob, and all of my friends, so many of my friends here. So the bridegroom went to prepare a place, and his friends would come by, and they would say, Moishi, when is the house going to be ready? And he would say, I don't know. Only my Father does. Because the Father would tell the bridegroom, okay, you're done. Go get your bride. And the same as it is with us. That the Father knows when the Son will return in fullness for his bride. Is that good or what? Amen. Okay, I plagiarized that from Wes. I don't know if it's a full plagiarism, because it is out of the Word. I want to think of what I want to share with you. I feel a lot of hope. And I feel like what God showed me was I had been looking straight ahead like this. Not that it was bad, but I've been looking like this. And right before last graduated to heaven, the Lord suddenly showed me that I was on a threshold. I'm sharing this with you because a lot of you will be facing the passing of a loved one as they go to heaven and graduate. I was looking like this. I'm on the threshold. This is where I am right now. But God showed me that I will be going into, he said, the broad place. And it'll be like this. And that vision helped me connect with hope and a future. And knowing that I have a future. Because when we face trials, when we go over rough terrain, oh, Mary, hey. When we face rough terrain, sometimes it's difficult to see that we have a future. And what God began showing me is that a lot of you are on rough terrain. Maybe your spouse didn't just pass, but you're like on rough, rocky terrain, right? Yeah. Anybody can say they're on rough terrain?
Yes.
No. Okay, so I've been on this rough terrain, but then I came to this choice point. You go on rough terrain, I came to this choice point, and right there God is saying, I give you hope, I give you a future. Trust in me, because I will strengthen you and I will help you. And in that choice point, you can either receive what God says is true, and then you keep going in that direction, or you say, I don't know, I'm afraid, I don't know, I can't see my future, I don't know. And then you go off in this direction. But you still come to another choice point. And out here, you still come to another choice. We always have these choice points. And what I determined a long time ago is that I am going to dig in my heels and trust God no matter what. Amen. And when things don't turn out the way I think, the way I would like, I mean, I'd like blessed to live till he's 100 in good health. But when they don't turn out the way I like, I still trust him. Amen. When I don't understand, I still trust him. Yep. Yes. When I don't see the big picture, I still trust him because I know God has the big picture.
Amen.
That's right. Amen.
And I say that to you as I pray this time you're encouraged and that you feel the love of the Father and that you can see there's always hope and you always have a future. And I know that even without my husband, and you guys know how much I loved him and how connected we were and how we were like, he was the love of my life, and how we were like two peas in a pod, and our humor bounced off one another. And you know what kind of man of God he was. But I know that we fulfilled everything we were to fulfill in this lifetime together.
Amen.
I know that. And I know that I will fulfill everything God has called me to from here on.
Amen.
Because I am going to trust him.
That's right.
Now I want to tell you one more story that happened to me last spring. And that was when Leslie's lab work started. When Leslie's lab work started going bad, he was in stage 4 kidney disease. I took it really hard. And I said to Les, I said, I can't do this. I can't do life without you. I can't go on. I can't do this. I'm not going to make it. I said those words. Now, you guys know I teach on identity. I know who I am. I know in whom I am believed. And yet, this was my greatest fear. And my good friend Joanne came over, and she said, Linda, Les is going to die. But the devil wants to take you out too. And he will succeed unless you snap out of it. She said, oh, thank you. And you don't want to use your mascara.
No, we can't.
Anyway, you know what? I don't care. It's like, I cried, right, you guys? I cried. You don't care. I've quacked at their church 20 million times. Do you know that tent meeting? Did they tell you about the red ants climbing up my legs? No, it was like I was in Africa. I'm serious. So, okay, now where was I? Okay, so Joanne said, you need to snap out. Did you just say snap out of it? Okay, I need to snap
Sure
out of
did.
it. So she said, you need to snap out of it. She said, your face doesn't even look the same. And I thought, wow, you know, for Joanne to come, and it's like, Nathan, thou art the man. That it was one of those moments, I tell you. Then I had a dream, and I knew that if I didn't snap out of it, all of this happened within a matter of a few days. If I didn't snap out of it, I was going to end up in the hospital. So then I ended up talking to John Ross the next morning on the phone, Pastor John, and he said, in our conversation, he said that this couple who come minister at his church, the husband, they're very powerful in the prophetic. The husband suddenly died of a heart attack. I said, you're kidding. How's his wife? And he said, she's in the hospital. And I said, she is? She's a heavyweight. And John said, yes, she is. And so are you. And then I knew that's where I was headed. I'd gotten a warning from my good friend Joanne. I'd gotten a warning from John. So I went upstairs to Les's office, and I repented. And I said, I take back those words. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be okay. God is taking care of me. I take back those words. And then I repented to God and said, I take back those words. I take them back. Forgive me. I am going to make it. I trust you. Now, this was, some of you who know me know my father died when I was 4. So losing my husband, and he died before my eyes. And so losing my husband was my greatest fear. I have overcome my greatest fear.
Amen.
You guys know me. A lot of you really know me. And for me to say that, I've overcome a lot in my life. I've overcome my greatest fear. And in that, I feel such a depth of strength, such a depth of authority, such a depth of a new place, the new place where God is bringing me. And as you go through the trials that you go through, there's always hope, there's always a future, there's always a new place, there's always that broad place that God has ahead of you. And I encourage you to tell him, I trust you no matter what. You go through trials. My good friend Dennis and Jeannie have been going through a trial with her health, and he has maintained, he's been a good friend to me, and they have maintained joy in their lives, and they have been there for me. They live 2 doors down. My good friend Hugh has been a good friend to me. And so many others, Rita and George. George played the keyboard. Awesome man of God, right? Does he play? He will play afterwards. Did you hear George? Okay.
Yep.
George. I know, George. That's how I met George. You know what? See, this is what happens. I can't go first. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I want to hear from other people. But I met George when he was playing the keyboard in his garage, and I went over and prayed with him. Our hearts connected with George and Rita, and George and Les were tight. So right now, I want you to see a couple short video clips. My husband spoke at Women's Aglow last spring, and he talked about the feasts of Israel. And I'd like, after the video clips are played, then Bruce Porter, our pastor from Denver, will come up and share with you. So go ahead, Jan, and play those videos. And you can, if you need to dim the lights,